What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'll be answering some of your questions. We'll be talking about the 50th anniversary Lego Star Wars minifigures, Star Wars Episode 2 sets, as well as a new Clone Wars Ywing, and some 2026 Lego Star Wars leaks and rumors. We have a lot to talk about in this video, and if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next installment of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video, and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. But without further ado, let's get right on into this video. Our first question for today comes from Brickboy301, and they ask, will there be a new UCS Boba Fett Starship now that we have gotten the new Jango Fett one? And I think that this is something that is very likely, especially when comparing the newer Jango Fett Slave one to the Boba Fett's in previous. It is definitely a large upgrade when it comes to detailing, play features, as well as the windscreen piece just being the overall new and updated version. And I feel like it's something that now is definitely on LEGO's table for a remake. Now, I don't think we would see it next year or maybe even the year after, but down the line, I definitely think that the UCS Boba Fett Slave one is a set due for a remake, and that one being such a fan favorite set, especially now, even with the Jango Fett Slave one being a very well perceived UCS set, and one that really not anyone was expecting to see, to be honest. It really came out of left field, but I'm very happy that we finally got it, and I think it's a great set, and I think LEGO would be kind of silly not to remake Boba Fett Slave one. I feel like it's one that's 100% on the table, and one that we'll definitely see in the coming years. Hater Allies ask, what are the odds of a Munilist 10 gunship or any 2003 Clone Wars sets? And as much as I think a Munilist 10 gunship or any sets based off the 2003 Clone Wars would be so sick, we only ever got one, being the Anakin's custom Jedi Starfighter, which is such a great set, and it's also a very expensive set nowadays. It's like $200 for that small little set, but still a great one. But unfortunately, I just think it is insanely unlikely, and the biggest reason is looking toward back in 2023, we got the 20 years of Star Wars The Clone Wars. However, they just tied both of the Clone Wars together, the old 2003 short with the actual Clone Wars television series, and unfortunately we got nothing for the actual 2003 Clone Wars, which was the actual anniversary. So that just, goes to show that I doubt that we would ever see any more sets based off of that. Not to say we couldn't get something cool in the future, and especially if we get some sort of anniversary minifigure or something like that. Personally, I would love to see a Fordo. I think that would be so cool to see, as well as all of the Jedi just having the coolest designs in the 2003 Clone Wars, like Sassy Tin, Obi-Wan, all of them look so cool from the OG Clone Wars series. And well, maybe a Munilist 10 gunship is something that we could see. I feel like it's a lot less likely to see than, a normal gunship, or even like a more canonized gunship like a Wolfpack gunship or just some other kind of Legion's gunship versus the Munilist 10. I do think the Munilist 10 has a sick design. I just don't think that it is something that LEGO would consider doing, given that the 2003 Clone Wars show is actually pretty niche, especially when compared to the normal Clone Wars or the most recent Clone Wars. And as cool as I think it would be, I really think it is insanely unlikely. Jack says, do I think that we'll ever get a 212th Airborne Trooper again? And I do think that it is something that's very likely. I think the Airborne Troopers have such a cool design. I love those helmets, and I believe the last time that we saw them was with that Republic fighter tank, or also might have been the 212th in the Grievous's fighter. Either way, though, it's been quite a while since we've seen them last, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, the most recent one was definitely the 187th Trooper, because that one didn't have the waist cape, and that does bring, a small issue of them not having the waist capes and having printed waist capes, something that I'm not a big fan of, and a lot of other people are not big fans of, but I still think that that is something to overlook, just because I think the helmet design on the Clone Trooper for the Airborne Troopers is so cool, and it's such a shame that we don't see them more often. But I do think that we will see them in the future, because there's nothing to change about that helmet design. It's pretty much perfect, and LEGO wouldn't have to do anything to it. All they'd have to do was, print the torso differently for whatever minifigure they turn airborne, and I do really think that we'll see one in the future, whether that be if we get a 212th battle pack down the line, or if we just get him in maybe even a different Legion or something like that. I know a lot of people have wanted to see a 501st Airborne Trooper. Maybe if we go back to like some Geonosis sets, get another one of the Geonosis Airborne Troopers, or even just like a regular plain Airborne Trooper would be so cool to see. And I feel like it's something that would be very easy for LEGO to do, because once again, they already have that helmet mold ready and ready to put back into production. So I feel like, it wouldn't be too expensive for them. It's not like they need a new mold. And I feel like it would look so cool with the new pauldron piece as well if they did something with that. So I feel like it's definitely something that's very likely down the line. It's just a matter of time. Woodle says, assuming that the Cobb Vanth versus Cad Bane duel is going to be a real set, do I think that we will see more Diorama sets, and if so, what would I want to see? And from everything shaping up, it does look like we will be getting that Cobb Vanth versus Cad Bane duel, and we also had that helmet leak out for the Cobb Vanth helmet, which is also just a Boba Fett's helmet, if you didn't know. But to see, I feel like the set is something that is going to happen based off of what we have backing it. Yes, it's a little bit odd with the timing, something that we probably should have seen a little bit earlier when Book of Boba Fett was a little bit more prevalent and other stuff like that. However, I do think that we will still be seeing it. But as for more dioramas, I'm still a little salty about how dioramas, left for last year, and I feel like we might not be getting them back, especially in the way that they were, because looking toward the dioramas that are still on shelves, they're definitely not selling well at all. And I think that goes to show, if Lego wants to make a diorama, they should make more of like the figure dioramas. Like, I know I sound like a broken record, but like a Palpatine's Arrest diorama would sell so well for Lego. A Cloud City diorama, something like that, where you're getting like minifigures and stuff and not just a small displayable build, because I feel like those are the ones that are sitting on clearance for 50% off right now that aren't selling and are definitely giving them like a bad rep in the community, and why people, don't really want the dioramas. I think they have such a high ceiling and definitely something that Lego is kind of wasting the potential of right now. But if we actually see them return, which I think is unfortunately pretty unlikely, like I was saying, ones that I think would be sick to see: Palpatine's Arrest diorama, get all of your core figures. Moving on, I think a Cloud City diorama, maybe for the 50th year of anniversary, getting a remake of, not like an actual one-to-one remake, but a diorama rendition of a playset of like Cloud City. You get all of your cool minifigures in there, and you could either do maybe like the dining room table, or also if you have the Vader versus Luke fight, I think you would do a lot of really cool stuff like that. But overall, dioramas, there are endless possibilities. I'm sure everyone can come up with so many different ideas. It's just a matter of if Lego is going to actually start making them again, or if they're going to phase them out in favor for buildable droids or helmets. Says, do I think with the new Jango Fett Slave 1, Lego will finally remake the 2002 Bounty Hunter Pursuit set? And this is one that I have really wanted to see a remake of for a long time, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there as well. I think that this OG set from 2002 is such a fun one. The builds with all of the fun colors, and as well as having some great minifigures with Anakin, Obi-Wan, as well as that Zam Wesell that was exclusive to this set. I think Lego could definitely cook with a remake, and with seeing a new version of Jango Fett Slave 1, I do think it is very likely, not very likely, I think that it is likely though in the future. Now, yes, Jango Fett Slave 1 being a lot more prevalent and recognizable than a Bounty Hunter Pursuit, which is probably why I did get the remake beforehand, but I think this definitely does open up the door to see that Bounty Hunter Pursuit get remade. Now, whether that be for like an anniversary of Attack of the Clones, which we might not actually see any sets for, but I'll talk about that a little bit later, which is very unfortunate, but I do still think it would make a great set. Whether they take the route of going like 18 plus and having both sets more as, or both vehicles as kind of like more of a display piece and then getting your minifigures as well, or if they go for a play set and kind of stay true to that 2002 set, I think either way it would be so sick to see. It's one that's definitely overdue for a remake. Now, unfortunately, we wouldn't have all of the nice chrome pieces in the set, but I still think with the design of both of those ships, Lego could definitely cook with a great rendition of a newer set, as well as finally getting a new version of Zam Wesell would be so cool to see. Miltank Lover asks, when do I think that we will get Phase 1 clones again? Love the videos, and thank you. And as for Phase 1 clone troopers, I feel like they are right around the corner. Now, the obvious answer would be to say 2027 anniversary of Attack of the Clones. However, that brings the bigger question. That also is coinciding with the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, which would be the 50th anniversary of Star Wars in general. And I feel like Lego is going to focus on that over Attack of the Clones, which, may be a little unfortunate if you are especially a big fan of Attack of the Clones. But I still think it is possible to get at least one set based off the Attack of the Clones in 2027. I don't think it'll be like full waves based off of it, as the 50th year of anniversary, or 50th anniversary of Star Wars is definitely going to take priority, but I definitely think that we will see Phase 1 Clone Troopers come back in Lego once again. And honestly, I really do love the Phase 1 Clone Troopers, especially the ones that Lego puts out. I know a lot of people, really love the Phase 2 Clone Troopers, but the Phase 1s definitely do hold a special place in my heart, and I'm really hoping that we see them again in the future. Now, I really don't think it is super likely to see them based off of the Clone Wars again, especially in the animated style. Unfortunately, I don't think that we would ever see the animated style of the Phase 1 Clone Troopers happen again. I feel like they're only going to be going with the realistic style of Clone Troopers, and when it comes to that, I feel like I was saying, we'll definitely see them the next time that we get a episode 2 style set, or if Lego wants to do a one-off in the future. Now, unfortunately, right now it looks like they are focusing primarily on Phase 2 Clone Troopers, but if you look back kind of throughout the history of Lego Star Wars, they go through waves where they go Phase 2, they go Phase 1, they go Phase 2, they go Phase 1, and I feel like another thing kind of adding on to that is every time they switch phases, they change up the design. So let's say in like 2-3 years we switch back to some Phase 1 Clone Troopers, we'll have those, and then a couple of years of having Phase 1 Clone Troopers, when we flip back to Phase 2 Clone Troopers, they're going to have an updated design. Hopefully, maybe that's just me being wishful thinking, but we normally do flip-flop the majority of the Clone Troopers. Yes, when we're getting a certain phase, we definitely get the other phase here and there, but I do think that we will see the Phase 1 Clone Troopers come out pretty soon from Lego. Ethan Gaming has seen that the remake for the Old Republic video game is coming up. Do I think that Lego, knowing, is going to make more of or remake the older sets? And, well, unfortunately, I really don't think that that is something that is very likely. I talked about this briefly in the previous video, but I just don't think that Lego is really willing to make as many game sets as they were back in 2013. I feel like, looking toward the Lego company, they've changed quite a lot over the past 10 years, and I feel like, they're just not going to be as likely to, make the Sith Fury class Interceptor, make the Jedi Cruiser, make all of those other sets that they otherwise did back then. As unfortunate as that is, because those are some of my favorite sets of all Lego. I love the Old Republic, and I love the Lego sets of the Old Republic, and I feel like Lego, I'm not going to count them out. I do think that it is possible. We saw, that BD-1 set for the Jedi Survivor game. We also saw some of the other sets, like Battlefront 2 sets and stuff like that. So I'm not going to cut it out entirely, but I think that it is a lot less likely, especially to see the remakes. I feel like Lego might focus on making some new stuff, but I do agree with you. I would love to see some remakes of those sets, like looking toward the Sith Fury class Interceptor, one of my favorite sets, the Darth Malgus minifigure, such a nice one and so expensive on its own that it would be so nice to get a remade version that is a bit cheaper. But when it comes to the builds, all those builds, so nice. All those minifigures are great as well. So I feel like Lego definitely could cook with some remakes. I just don't think that it is going to be a very likely thing to see. Nimbus, we've got a couple of questions packed in this one. Starting off though with what clones am I most excited about? And I'd have to agree with you. I think the Phase 1 clone pilot would be that. Now I will say I watched a review of the V19 Torrent, and that Phase 1 pilot does not look how it does on the box. That's all I'm going to say. I'll save the rest of what I'm going to talk about for my review when I do review that set, but it is a little bit unfortunate there, but I still think that it is a great minifigure with the printing as well as all the different detailing and the molding. But I would say the one that I'm most excited for has to be the Galactic Marines. I think they look so cool, even after watching reviews of them and seeing them kind of in person. I think they look so cool, and I cannot wait to get my hands on those. Really want to army build those, and I can't really hoping that they appear in a cheaper set, 'cause I don't want to be spending $160 on a puny little turbo tank just to get 3 Galactic Marines. And then as for your next question, the saddest battle in the Clone Wars, I think I'd have to agree with you. I think the Battle of Umbara, pretty sad there, when they're fighting each other. I think there's definitely a couple of other sad battles or moments, but I do think the number one for me would have to be the Battle of Umbara, and I really hope that we get more Umbara themed sets at some point in the future. The Real Jack says, do I think that we'll get a Battle of Geonosis diorama or even a playset, and if so, what minifigures would I want? And well, I do think that Lego will definitely revisit Geonosis at some point, whether that be a playset or a diorama. It really comes down to what era are they going to revisit it in. The first one, and probably the most likely one, being the Episode 2 era of, Attack of the Clones, where the minifigures that I would want to see would be maybe a new version of like Anakin, Obi-Wan, a Geo Padme, getting all of your cool named clones from there. Or not named clones, you know what I mean? They're like the clone captain, the clone lieutenant, the clone commander with all of the nice coloring. Maybe get a new Coleman Trevor as well. A lot of cool minifigures you could see if it's based off Attack of the Clones, but arguably some cooler stuff that you could see is if it's based off of the Clone Wars, like landing on Point Rain. You could get a Phase 1 Commander Cody, you could get your Obi-Wan, you could get your Ki-Adi-Mundi, you could get the Flame Troopers, the ARF Troopers in the Geonosis style. Now that is how I want to see it. I would love to see those minifigures that people have wanted for so long, and with the new mold for the Galactic Marines could definitely be used to make those Geonosis Flame Troopers if Lego actually wanted to. Now I think that getting it based off of the Clone Wars is a lot less likely than getting it based off of Episode 2, but I would love to see it. I'm sure a lot of other people out there would also love to see it based off of the Clone Wars. I think it would be so cool to see. I think it's pretty unlikely. I think if we did get Geonosis, like I said, it would be based off of Episode 2, but either way I would be happy. Geonosis being so iconic and so cool, I have no doubt that we'll see sets for it at some point soon in the future. Benjamin asks, do I think that it's possible that we maybe get a new Ywing next year, and which version and colors would I want to make it? And there was a rumor going around that there was a Ywing on the table for 2026. Now take that with a grain of salt, like I said previously when I talked about it in a video, and the rumor was that it was a yellow Ywing, and that leads me to believe it's either a Rebel Ywing like the previous ones that we saw, which you could get some fun Rebel minifigures and stuff like that, or what I would love to see would be a remake of the Anakin's Ywing that we saw all those years back. That set, so so good. It's one of my favorite sets from the era of the Clone Wars. It's not necessarily like a great set with amazing minifigures, but the build just so nostalgic for me, and I think getting a remake of that would be so cool. You could get Anakin, Ahsoka, and then you could get a Phase 1 clone pilot. Honestly, perfect set right there. I would buy it. Realistically, it would be probably like $70, maybe more, but I still think that would be a very cool set. Now, as for some other variants of a Ywing that you could get, you know, Captain Rex's Ywing, we got the Microfighter. So many people wanted that to be a full-size set. Unfortunately, that one is not looking likely to happen though, but I think getting a Zillo Beast one will also be kind of unlikely. I do think the design of that red one that dropped the bomb on the Zillo Beast, like you were saying, such a cool design. As a kid, I always wanted that set, or that to be a set, and I tried modding my old one to become that at one point, and it turned out terrible, and I ended up losing my old Ywing. Very sad, unfortunate, because that's such a nice set, and I wish I still had it today, but unfortunately, I tried to mod it to look like the red one that drops the bomb on the Zillo Beast, but I think that one, very unlikely, but would make an amazing set, don't get me wrong, and I would love to see that one. I think maybe the most, no, I'd want to see the yellow one the most, but I do think it is likely, especially if this rumor ends up being true. Now, like I said, it's just a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but I do think even if that rumor is not true, we'll definitely see another Ywing at some point in the future. Now, most likely it would be a Rebel-themed Ywing, as much as I'd love to see a new Clone Wars Ywing, just given how prevalent the Ywings are in the original trilogy, and I think maybe, you know, looking toward the 50th anniversary of Star Wars A New Hope and just Star Wars in general, I think then would be the perfect time to get a new version of a Rebel Ywing, but either way, I do think that a Ywing is something that's very likely. And our last question for today comes from Sleepy, and they asked, do I think that there will be anniversary figures for the 50th anniversary, and if so, who do I want to see? And honestly, I feel like it is pretty likely to see anniversary minifigures for the 50th year anniversary of Star Wars. I feel like that would be the perfect time to see them. Now, I do also think that looking back toward the previous anniversary minifigures, they've done very well for Lego. They've definitely been selling points for some of those sets, and definitely with the rising pricing of Lego sets, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow if you're getting an exclusive minifigure. Now, yes, it's also another excuse for Lego to bump up the prices, which definitely sucks, but I do think that we will probably see them for the 50th anniversary. Now, as for who I want to see, it really depends on what Lego ends up doing. Now, most recently, we got like the anniversary figures where it's just people that we never would have seen otherwise. You know, we got like the Fives, the Cal Kestis, Nine Nub. We got some really cool figures like that, and ideally that's what we would get again in the 50th anniversary, because I think that is the perfect way to get all of those minifigures that we wouldn't see. And if that is a way to see them, I think, you know, getting some maybe for like the Old Republic, I don't think we'll see Old Republic sets, so maybe if we got Darth Nihilus, you know, some other stuff like that, like we got the what's his name, Darth Malak earlier, which is so sick to see. Maybe if you got some other like clone troopers that we otherwise wouldn't see, maybe if it is based off of the 2003 Clone Wars, we could get that Fordo, or if Lego takes the OG route and like they did in the previous anniversaries back in 2019, and they remake those old minifigures, I think it would be cool to get anniversary like renditions of the Cloud City minifigures, like the Leia, the Lando, the Han, the Boba Fett, the Luke. I think that would also be very cool. Now, I think some people would be a little bit mad about that. You know, the collectors that spent $2,000 on a Boba Fett minifigure would be mad to see them, you know, make a reappearance if they do come back with that OG style. But I don't think that is very likely. But I think looking back to 2019, if they did remake that, I think that would be so cool, especially if we're getting remakes of some of the OG sets based off of A New Hope. Could be really cool to see. Now, I really don't know. They also, Lego could just completely not make more anniversary minifigures, because we did just recently get them in 2024. So I'm not sure. I think we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think when it comes to anniversary minifigures, there's so many sick characters that are deserving to get a Lego minifigure. So I feel like it really just comes down to what Lego ends up choosing, and I'm really hoping that we get some anniversary minifigures, because it gives us a great opportunity to get some great characters. But that is going to do it for this video, guys. Let me know who you would want to see as an anniversary minifigure if Lego makes them for the 50th anniversary. And if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in the next installment of this series, let me know down below in the comment section of this video, and I'll try my best to get to them in the next episode. But thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for everyone for asking a question. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Stay safe. Drew, signing out.